We came on air this morning. It finished over in California, 104-99 in the favor of Golden State Warriors. It was Game 5 of the Western Conference semi-finals, probably the biggest game of the season, and they now take a 3-2 lead going into Houston for Game 6. I'm delighted to say that Ryan Farmer-Jones, friend of the show, is with us on the line this morning. Good morning to you, Ryan.
Morning, Eoin. How are you?
I'm very well. There's a number of interesting storylines from this game this morning. You can talk about the way Golden State closed out this game, but the narrative around how they closed out this game is hammered down by the fact that they were without Kevin Durant for pretty much the entire fourth quarter.
Right, yeah. Durant gets injured there. I think it was right at the end of the third quarter. It looked like an Achilles injury at first, and everybody was, sort of terrified, whether you're a fan or not. You hate to see a guy have an injury potentially that serious. It turns out it looks just like a calf strain, which certainly could cost him a game or two here, but obviously nothing that's going to, end his season or shouldn't extend any beyond that. But yeah, he's been their best player. As good as Steph Curry is, Durant's been the guy for this team, really. And to see him go out, you sort of wondered how the Warriors would respond. And then you remember, well, they've basically got all the guys who won 73 games a couple years ago, so they're not too scant otherwise. So. They played well down the stretch. Houston also, and Curry, to his credit, Curry stepped up. I think he had 14 in the fourth, something like that. But the Rockets kind of kept shooting themselves in the foot down the stretch, had some turnovers and fouls and kind of silly mistakes that, they seem a bit snake bit against these Warriors the last couple of years. They seem to have them on the ropes and be in a position where maybe they'll finally knock them off, and then they find a way to blow it. It felt a little bit like that at the end tonight.
Yeah, it's very simplistic to say, I guess, that Steph Curry plays better when Kevin Durant is off the court, because you just look at the statistics. He scored more in the fourth quarter. Is it too simplistic, though? Is it a situation where Steph Curry, of old, the 73 game winning regular season, Steph Curry kind of steps up a little bit more, or is at least a little bit more present when Durant is off the court? And I'm not suggesting that they're a better team. I'm just talking about Steph Curry here as an individual.
Right. I think it has a lot to do with how they play, how they played before Durant and since. I mean, clearly they're better. Anytime you ask a player of Durant's caliber, you can only help but be a better team. But I think Curry is freer to sort of do what he does best, which is just, work to find open spaces. And he's allowed to, I think, be a little more aggressive. And he seems to almost have more confidence when he's out there kind of as the focal point in a way. I think you have to give him a lot of credit for how he's sort of deferred to Durant. There have been times where his numbers have suffered, whether that's fewer opportunities or less confidence or something, but he seems very comfortable when Durant's not out there, and I think you saw that glimpse tonight. And again, this is that core, him and Thompson and Iguodala, that Draymond Green, obviously, that's the core that set that NBA record a couple years ago before Durant got there. So that group is still very capable of putting up great numbers and beating anybody, even if Durant's not on the court.
Have we seen kind of a look into the future in terms of next season a little bit with the end of that game last night? I mean, Kevin Durant obviously being linked with a move away from Golden State Warriors. You talk about kind of, I don't know, for me looking at that, it was kind of like the good old days, seeing all of them play together without Kevin Durant on the court, which I completely accept is a really harsh view on it, because Kevin Durant is one of the best players we've seen in this generation. Right. But I do wonder if it's just a sense of what we might be seeing next season. Like, I'm not sure what your view is on the Kevin Durant moving away from Golden State Warriors situation is.
It does feel almost inevitable at this point, which is crazy to say, because they absolutely could win it again this year. And if they could keep them together, it's not crazy to think that they might win another, one or two championships with this group. But there just seems to be so much, kind of behind the scenes tension that has bubbled up around that group. I think there's a sense that's been pretty well documented that Durant has never sort of felt fully appreciated since he got there. Again, it was a 73-win team before he got there. It's not like they could get much better, right? Even in adding him, they could only win so many games in the season. It's always kind of felt like that. He's been sort of funny in the way he handles kind of questions about that. And but again, the things have just bubbled up that there's some resentment, might be too strong a word, but it's never felt like a great fit for everybody, personality-wise and ego-wise, and they've sort of made it work for a few years, obviously at a very high level. But it almost does seem inevitable that he's going to be gone, whether it's New York or the Clippers or somewhere else. So, yeah, I think it's very possible that, we might be at the tail end, however this season ends, of Durant's time in Golden State. And, again, that core showed that when Curry's out there and the rest of those other guys are out there, they're still awfully tough to beat even without him.
Do you give Houston any chance for the rest of the series? I see somebody on Twitter is making the joke that both sides were without their best players in the fourth quarter. Golden State were without Kevin Durant and Houston were without James Harden, who I don't think scored for the last 10 minutes of the entire game.
It was a very, I was joking with someone. It was a little bit of a flashback to that Game 7 last year where, the Rockets missed 27 three-pointers famously and just seemed to collapse. Like I said, there seems to be something about these Rockets where when they think they should have the Warriors on the ropes, they sort of can't figure out how to close things out. So it's been strange to watch, and Harden, who is essentially so unstoppable every other time. Again, he I don't want to say disappeared, but almost, a sense of he disappeared there down the stretch. So it's strange to watch. To your question, though, I think you still have to give the Rockets a shot. They're going to go home in Game 6. Presumably Durant's probably out. And so the Rockets at home will probably play with confidence. And if they shoot well and they play well, they got a great shot. I think the shine is off of these Warriors a little bit in the sense that they did struggle at points this year. Curry has had kind of the nagging injury things here and there, and they have shown their age at points. But at the same time, if it comes down to a Game 7 in Oracle and Golden State's at home, you got to assume that they'll still be favored to pull it out. But so I don't rule the Rockets out yet, but the Warriors certainly have control of the series right now.
Is it fair to say that the Warriors are looking more mortal in the playoffs than they have at any point since 2016, and perhaps even including 2016? Because let's face it, the finals in 2016 were one of the most ridiculous sporting events we've seen over the past decade or so. So even including that, there are, as you mentioned, there are chinks in the armour here which teams can expose. And I do wonder if a team should just rock up to the Oracle Arena and play like the Thunder played in 2016 and just basically fight them.
Right. Yeah, it's one of the interesting things without LeBron, obviously, in this year's playoff was a sense of, okay, you had a sense in the West it was going to probably come down to Houston and Golden State. Obviously, Denver's playing awfully well right now, and so they're going to be a challenge, assuming it's them in the next round for whoever makes it out of this series. But then in the East, you've got, Milwaukee looking awfully good, Toronto with Kawhi Leonard. So whoever gets through to the finals, even if the Warriors get back there, they're going to be facing some new challenges in the conference finals. And then in the NBA final, if they made it. So, to your point, I think that the Warriors have looked a bit more human this year. I think it speaks to how hard it is in any sport at the highest level to maintain that sort of level of just incredible record-setting greatness beyond a season. Again, they've been very good. They've won more championships, but it's hard to maintain that level of sort of infallibility year to year to year. You just don't see it very often at any level, I don't think. Even when the talent's the same. So, I think they've looked a bit more human. But I think you're also saying, again, they still certainly show that potential to kind of bring it back to that level and show a bit of what made them what they've been the past few years.
Just a quick word on the East then. Milwaukee dumped Boston out last night. Is there any hope at all for them if you see them getting to the finals? Because I guess if you're going by bookmakers' odds at this point, or you're looking at the favourites, it's probably going to be a Warriors versus Milwaukee NBA finals at this point if we're sticking our neck out. Would you give Giannis and his crew any chance at all in that finals?
I would. I'd give him a shot. Again, it's experience is always an issue in the NBA finals, especially in a team that's been there before and has that many veteran guys who've been through the rigors of that series. They know what it feels like. They know what the pressure's like. That's a huge advantage for Golden State. But Giannis is playing at such a high level. There's a chance that they'll have been better rested and had a little more or a little less sort of wear and tear going into the finals if they make it, based on how quickly they've gotten out of these first two series. Malcolm Brogdon, if he's back and healthy, with Bledsoe, with Giannis, with Chris Middleton, that's a really good team, and they're well coached. I think you have to give them a shot just because they're playing awfully well, and they've got, at the moment, maybe the best all-around guy in the league, or certainly I think this year's MVP in Giannis. So I'd give them a shot.
Just one last thing before we let you go, Ryan. Obviously, as LeBron's biographer and all that, just a quick question on the Lakers. There was some suggestion that he might be hooking back up with Tyronn Lue. That looks like it's not going to happen. The offer apparently from the Lakers was miserable, according to some sources. People were kind of accepting that as fact and giving their takes on what the Tyronn Lue LeBron James partnership would look like, and naturally Kyrie Irving's name was thrown into the mix. Even without Tyronn Lue, could we see a Kyrie LeBron reunion in Los Angeles next season?
LeBron's move out to LA was so sort of, the way it came about, it wasn't surprising ultimately, but it was still sort of an oddity, going out to a team that really wasn't ready to contend, and then the moves they made didn't make it any better. And then his injuries and the way the season went, and now their off season has just been sort of a comic relief in the midst of these playoffs. And then Kyrie's kind of his own odd guy. So I feel like you can't rule anything out with him and with them. I think it's possible that he could reunite with LeBron. He remembers how good they were when they were together. And he certainly seems like he's probably on his way out of Boston. I think everybody involved probably thinks that's the best move for the Celtics, including Kyrie. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be incredibly interesting to watch how the offseason breaks down with LeBron, with the Lakers, with Kyrie, with Durant. The NBA, the story so much in recent years is yeah, the finals are interesting, but what happens next? That offseason is incredible to watch. And obviously those will be a couple of the biggest storylines, where Kyrie lands, assuming LeBron stays in LA, Durant, the teams that are in play there, it's going to be a circus.
Listen, Ryan Farmer-Jones, thanks a million for staying up for us so late. Great to chat to you.